And of course, the system, short of silver, saying, whoopee, we can bash the price of silver and maybe we can get a bit back. Well, dream on. There's no speculative interest in basically gold or silver. And on that basis, I think the turnaround, when it happens, which is likely to be quite soon, will be very, very, very dramatic. Now, I can't say from what level that turnaround will occur, because what we're seeing is actually something which I think is really quite frightening. And the markets have yet actually to wake up to the full implications of the American error of trying to take on Iran. But they will, I think, over the next 2 weeks. And by the end of March, you might well see that bubble is really popped. So that's how I see it. The only effect really, which is of interest to this audience, is that they've hit precious metals. Gold is down something like 4 or 5%, silver down another, 8, 9%. This is in the belief that, there's a flight into the dollar. Now, initially, there is a flight into the dollar. The dollar's trade-weighted index has recovered somewhat. But when people sit back and think just a little harder about what they should do, I think you'll find that reverses. We will see bond yields rise. That is already beginning to disrupt equity markets, which have fallen, to my mind, you might say that they've fallen heavily today. I don't think that's starting. Hardly started. I think we're going to see far greater falls there. And so the whole situation, I just don't understand why it is that President Trump fell for Israeli persuasion to come in and try and take Iran out. It's the most stupid thing anyone can do. What's the man doing? This is the president of the United States. Surely the man has got more gumption than that. Just walk in and try and beat the hell out of Iran. This is going to backfire on him. And I think when it comes to regime change, you're not going to see it in Iran. But here's the thought. If there is regime change, it will probably be in America. This is a fundamental mistake of the most enormous proportions, with global consequences.
Alasdair Macleod says the Iran war united Iran, not crushed it. Oil-disrupted bond yields rising will pop the equity bubble. The Fed will print, destroying the dollar. China dumped treasuries in February and may back the yuan with gold. The fiat system is ending. Get into physical.
Well, the natural thing, which everybody can understand, is energy prices going through the roof. We've got, looking at WTI as we talk, that's about $75. I think it's going to go higher. I understand that what the Iranians are doing is they are allowing Russian and Chinese shipping through Hormuz, but stopping everything else. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's what I've been told. Now, the reason that there's going to be really no shipping going through Hormuz is not just that, but you cannot insure your ship. Basically, all Lloyd's insurance has been withdrawn for shipping going through Hormuz. So, if you can't insure your ship, you're not going to go through. And that's why the ships are piling up both on the western approaches to Hormuz and also the eastern approaches to Hormuz. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is that bond yields are going to rise. Why? Because this is, if you like, a shock, which it's an economic shock, which is bound to lead to, they call it a recession. A slump, I think, is probably the better word. A slump, if you like, due to higher energy prices, due to shipping disruption, whatever. And with that slump, what you're going to find is that the ability of the United States to service its debt is going to be fundamentally impaired. Because at the end of the day, what really matters in the debt market is the tax income that covers the debt and also the interest on that debt. Now, we know that America doesn't pay interest on the debt. I mean, the interest is notional. It ends up paying the interest when it matures, and they've got to roll it over into something else. But as far as foreign holders of this debt is concerned, they will see something which demands a far higher yield to justify holding it. But then you've got the problem of a debt trap. The higher the yield goes, the less attractive the debt becomes. I think we're on the verge of that. The implication of that is that with the bond market already, if you like, giving far better returns than the S&P index. I mean, if you look at the valuation base between the two, the long bond and the S&P, the S&P is in a bubble. It is wildly overvalued. So rising bond yields on the long end is going to pop that bubble. And when that bubble pops, you've got to think, what is the Fed and what are the US Treasury going to do? Well, it's quite simple. They've only got one course of action they can take. And that is, they will do everything they can to support the market, support equities from sliding, because it is so important for overall confidence in the economy to have a healthy stock market. Equally, it's very dangerous to have a stock market which is not healthy. So they will try and support it. There is also, writ large, in every Fed man's mind, what happened in the, in 1929, 1930. What happened then was that as equity values fell, because equities were a very important part of overall bank collateral, the banks started selling that collateral as it became, as loans became uncovered. So in other words, you have the mechanics, if you like, of a crash, which are sitting in the wings. Those are the consequences that I see. And of course, as the Fed indulges in QE to infinity, it just basically undermines the value of the dollar in terms of its purchasing power, which makes the situation worse. We are in a spiral, which is the end of this fiat currency dollar-based system. It is finished. And the question which I can't answer is, how long will it take between now and that end point? I think it could be as little as 2 years. Might even be 1 year for all I know. I mean, it is actually very, very serious. I think that the real thing was indicated to us by China turning around, I think it was on about the 8th or 9th of February, and telling its banks and insurance companies who held US Treasuries under license from the PBOC that they should reduce their positions. In other words, it was an instruction to sell. Why would they do that? I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that their reading of the situation was that it was inevitable that Trump would move America into a war against Iran. Now, that being the case, this was a move, if you like, which indicates quite clearly that China is moving away from the dollar, not just for trade purposes, but entirely, and will soon protect itself against a collapsing dollar. You could even go one further than that and say that this becomes a currency war. China could well do something, if you like, about the dollar and its status in terms of international value to undermine that value. I mean, he could, for example, turn around and say, we have 30,000 tons of gold with which we are prepared to back the yuan. Now, that statement would kill the dollar. Of that, I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever. I don't know they would be there quite that aggressive, obvious, maybe. But you can see that there is some scope, I think, for China to wage a financial and economic war against America, which means that it doesn't have to declare a military war against America. But the reason for doing that would be to protect its alliance, its tripartite alliance with Iran. And Iran is also central, in a way, to BRICS. And not only BRICS, but also the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It is a member of both those organizations. So this is, I think, very, very important. Iran also supplies oil to China. It seems that the Iranians actually have very, very strong resolve in this war. And the idea that they're going to be pushed over or whatever, that I think President Trump is learning to be absolutely false. He's on the verge, apparently, of a new wave of bombing, and the idea is that this is going to be absolutely, take them out. Well, I don't know. The problem, I think the problem here is that doing away with the leader by assassinating him actually stirs up a hornet's nest. He was a leader of the Shia sect, which goes beyond Iran. And not only that, but to be murdered, assassinated in a way which the founder of the Shia sect was also assassinated, centuries ago. It is sort of ringing a horrid great bell, if you like, in every Arab's mind. This is not a good move. It's mixing religion with economics, with war, and the Iranians have a far stronger resolve. Basically, it's just united them against the hated enemy, which is America and Israel. And if you think that this large country of 36 million people, something like that, big territory, very mountainous, you think these guys are going to just roll over and play dead? No way. And not only that, but I mean, they have been preparing for the last 40 years since the Shah was kicked out for retribution from the West. So they have built up arms in a way which the West hasn't. Furthermore, the West has depleted a lot of its ammunition, missiles, and all the rest of it in the Ukraine war. I don't think that the aggressors, Israel and America, actually have the wherewithal for a war which continues more than a week or so. I mean, maybe 2 weeks, I don't know. The one thing that is becoming clear is that the Iranians have an awful lot more to send over in terms of ordnance than we have to send over to them. This is bad news. What they're doing is they're disturbing the whole of the Middle East. And so oil, LNG, all these factors are being very, very badly disrupted. I don't think this is a time when you seek to accumulate assets anymore. I think this is a time when you protect what you've got. And the only way to do that is to get out of credit, which is currencies as well. Don't believe economists who tell you that currencies are money. No, they are credit, because there is a counterparty. It's called a central bank. You look at their balance sheet, it's a liability on the central bank to you if you actually own, sort of dollars or, yen or whatever it might be. And it's educating people so that they can protect themselves. I think this is desperately important. And we're beginning to see that this is getting more and more important in a world which is becoming increasingly unstable. I mean, I do think that that's a ticking time bomb, that's for sure. I think actually that this war has been pushed basically by Israeli interests, Zionist interests, which do an awful lot of important political funding in the United States. It's a lobby which it seems the president cannot ignore. I mean, there's no doubt about it that the president's family seem to be tied up quite a bit with Jewish interests. They've also got interests around the Gulf too. I mean, you've got, as I understand it, Trump hotels and all the rest of it. I mean, you've got real estate and so on. I mean, this is a real estate man. And I think that part of the Iranians' attempts, if you like, to destabilize Dubai is all about knocking property values. And this is a direct message to the president. Yeah, I mean, I think the most important point you made of those three is that these wars are never quick. I mean, how long has Ukraine been going? We just had our 4th anniversary of that one. I mean, when the First World War kicked off, everybody thought it would be over by the first Christmas. 4 years later, and millions more dead, it was still going on. So I think that's a point very, very well made. And I would go even further, and I would say that if we have Taco, Trump always chickens out. If he decides to sort of back off and make some excuse and all the rest of it, don't expect the Iranians to stop shelling Israel, if you like, shelling American interests around the Gulf, and not just military bases. I think as far as the generals in Iran are concerned, this war is going to go on. I mean, Trump might try and call a truce. I don't know. He's going to really, I think his strategy basically is to have one big, big push tonight, tomorrow, whenever. But that won't cow the Iranians. It will not cow the Iranians. This is going to go on. And even if America tries to back out of this, it will continue as far as the Iranians are concerned. This is not a good situation. It's a huge, huge strategic mistake to have gone along with Netanyahu in trying to eliminate